Thanks for tuning in today. Today, you get to see me work in the yard because it needs to be done. So today is a little different pace, of course, because I need to do some work in the yard. And what work am I doing? I'm converting this grass into essentially a garden. And the best way that I have found to do it is to first lay down cardboard everywhere and then put down some topsoil on top. And then we put about 3 inches of compost, essentially. And this will give us a barrier against all of the weeds or grass that is currently growing. It'll give us a good base to tamp that down and also hold moisture, and then we will also have our nutrition on top. Now, we could, of course, use fertilizers instead of a good compost, but in my opinion, if you're going to have a garden, what's the point of having a garden if it's not a healthy garden that kind of keeps itself growing? I don't want to be adding fertilizers that are made from essentially petroleum distillates. Not that there's anything bad. Maybe that's actually one of the better ways to use oil, and my opinion is to grow food with it. But let me know in the comments what you think about that. I would prefer to use compost, and I do have a compost heap in my house. I would like to start a compost heap here as well, but I don't really need compost here yet because I don't have any gardens. Right now we have, of course, this section right over here that is essentially a bunch of natives. They are pulling water down into our soil. They are increasing our water table, and they have been helping to drain this front yard a lot faster, because when I got this place, when it would rain, this front yard would stay wet for a week afterwards. And now those plants, in particular the tall grasses, they soak that water up fast. And I believe that would help my water table over here, and it will more than likely keep everything wet in my grass area as well. I mean, and we're, of course, quite a few days away from rain, and this is all just super moist and soggy, even though we've had lots of sun and wind. And this is about 3 feet deep of alluvial plains topsoil, which is why I wanted to put a garden here in the first place, because, I mean, it's just grass. It's doing me no good right now. So I'm in the middle of this. I'll describe to you what exactly I'm doing with these boxes. So we want to make sure that it is a cardboard box that does not have the white, the plasticized sort of finish to it. So these are just regular stuff. If it has print on it, it is no big deal, but you want to make sure that you take off all of the tape and, if possible, take out all of the staples. Once you start with a clean base like this, it's very hard, or it's easier to keep it up. Of course, I've got this stump that's in the middle. I'm not sure if I'm going to try to burn it out before I progress or not. After a few years, it's going to deteriorate anyway. That's actually going to hold a lot of moisture, so it may be useful to keep it. Maybe just chop it down a little bit more, but I'm going to end up adding enough topsoil to bring it up pretty much to that level, because the rest of the yard over here is higher than the yard is down there, and I don't really want much slope. So essentially, what we do is we make sure that there's an overlap on all of our pieces. We don't want gaps like there is showing right now, but I'm just kind of running through this fast for you. And you can see this tape. Pretty much all boxes are going to have tape, and it's a little bit tedious, but this tape will not degrade. So if you throw it into your yard, it's going to be there for, who knows how long. And if you're kind of lazy about it every time, because this does have to be done for a couple years in a row to get everything to die underneath, then you're going to have a lot of tape build up in your yard, plastics build up in your yard. They're going to turn into microplastics. And to tell you the truth, we don't know what hormones it might be putting into your plants. And that's just not something that I want to eat, even if it's just plastics leaching into my yard. It just doesn't seem like a good idea to me. It literally just throwing trash into the yard. Regular old cardboard, though, will degrade over time, basically within a year, and it turns into topsoil, essentially. And on top of that, the worms love to live in it. So if you have thick cardboard like this, these ridges right here, the worms will actually go into those and lay their eggs. So it's kind of a multi-benefit here using this. Of course, it's a very windy day, so this is going to be very difficult to accomplish. But I've got plenty of rocks here. If you've seen the channel, you know I have plenty of rocks that I can throw down on these until I get the topsoil down to keep it. So it's a pretty menial sort of task, but at least in my opinion, long term, I'd much rather have grass than to have I'm sorry. I'd much rather have garden than grass. And honestly, even if it's feeding nothing but the deer and the wildlife, which there's actually no deer pressure at this location. At my family home, there are deer. I can grow nothing there without the deer essentially eating them all. So every year I have increased the amount of plants that I grow and increased the amount of plants that I grow. And I mean, can you blame them? Most yards are deserts for deer and most animals as far as what they can eat. When we select our landscaping, we think, well, what's going to be deer resistant? What's not going to get eaten by the animals? And all we're doing is making anything else that we do try to put down for food, even that more irresistible to them. So, at least in my opinion, I mean, we can always put up fences, but in my opinion, I would rather continue to plant more and more and more food until the animals just can't eat anymore. Or if there's really that many animals that they're eating them all, guess who can eat the animals? That's right, me. And I'm not going to be, sitting up shop with a gun in my front yard, but I tell you what, snares will work on deers too. Snares will work on deers. You just have to have something really stout so that they don't pull your snare out of the ground. I don't think you could use, those like screw into the ground dog, the dog leash things, whatever. Let me know in the comments what they're called. But I'm pretty sure that a big enough deer would just yank one of those or break one of those right off of the ground. So I haven't tried to snare a deer yet, but I'm also not going hungry right now. And this is kind of practice, or maybe not even practice for the future, but just something to make me feel good. Honestly, I'll be straight with you. I don't eat vegetables unless they're from my yard. And it's not because I don't trust them, it's just they're not appetizing to me. I go to the store and, maybe a cucumber or something like that, but for the most part, they're just not very appetizing. But I've already got some kale coming up at my home, at the family home, and I go out there in the morning time and I'll eat a leaf of kale. Hey, that's a lot more than I usually get in my diet, and it tastes really good. The store-bought kale is not bad, don't get me wrong. They're collard greens. I do like collard greens, but I mean, they're cooked with bacon, so of course they're delicious. I'm from Georgia, so we cook them the right way. That's a very common meal down in Georgia to have collard greens with anything else that you eat. But at any rate, what I'm trying to say is that I eat a lot more vegetables when I grow them myself, and I don't know why. They just seem a lot more appealing to me when it's fresh out of the ground and it's not, sitting at the grocery store. So I will continue on with this. If you do have any questions, feel free to leave them down below, and I'll do my best to get to them. Maybe what you should grow or when you should plant them. Questions like that. It's late March here, and it's about time to get planting. I have started some seeds inside already, and as soon as I get this down, I'm gonna start throwing some seeds on top, and then throw a little bit of compost on top of that. I like to direct seed instead of start them inside. You don't always get the biggest plants that way, but it takes a lot of effort to seed inside and then transplant them outside. So at least in my opinion, I kind of like the direct sow method. It works out. It's a little lazier, but at the same time, it still works. So that's what I'm doing this year. Like I said, if you do have any questions, be sure to leave them down below, and I'll do my best to get to them. And in the meantime, hope you enjoyed this little something different for our day, and have a good one.